Let's focus on our climate. Now, in the latest episode of our Climate Focus series, the streets of Bawku are witnessing a transportation shift like never before. Following a ban on motorbike riding due to security concerns, electric bikes have now emerged as the new preferred mode of transportation. Eco-friendly and efficient, these e-bikes are transforming daily commutes while significantly reducing carbon emissions. Mahmoud Mohamed Nuruddin takes today's Climate Focus series and tells us more.
Welcome to Bawku, where the hum of electric bikes has become the new normal. With the motorbike ban, residents had to find alternative transportation. Electric bikes have become a game changer.
I started using this electric motor 3 months ago. With the electric motor, when it came, we were having problems buying the motor because we were not sure whether it will be good.
Meet Idrisu Zulfao, a teacher who has embraced the electric bike phenomenon.
Okay, with this, when you have the opportunity to use whether to buy the electric one or you buy the old type of motor, to me, I think when you buy the electric one, it will help you a lot. Because with the electric one, you don't need to use much money, or you don't need to use money to buy fuel and all sort of things.
It's very accessible, and once you charge it, I don't know, even though they are of different brands, but looking at my own if I charge this one, I use it for the whole week. Before I could charge, if I charge it on Sunday till next Sunday, I don't charge it again, and I use it to do my activities.
The battery percentage per my motor, I'm not the busy type, so I can use it for days. But some complain that their battery doesn't last even for a day. But mine, I don't face that such difficulty.
The e-bike is not only eco-friendly but cost-effective, especially with fuel prices skyrocketing.
No buying of fuel. You can see these days, the fuel price is just moving high and high. So when you buy this motor, there's no need for you to buy fuel to stress yourself. So it's just very easy. When you buy, the only thing you do is just to charge it and you're good to go.
Actually, I would say I would prefer this. I would prefer this. Because looking at the fuel prices nowadays, even today, if they're asking us to ride motor, I think some people will still park their motors. Because you can't afford the fuel. The fuel prices is not something to deal with.
The e-bikes produce no noise, no carbon dioxide, and no harmful emissions. It is a win-win for residents' health and the environment.
Since it doesn't produce sound and carbon dioxide, I think it's very good for everyone, especially our health. It's very, very good, and it's very, very necessary.
It helps you to protect the environment in the sense that it doesn't produce carbon dioxide. So because it doesn't produce carbon dioxide, it protects the environment from pollution, from noise pollution, and then from also protecting the ozone layer.
Yes, and as it is, there is no noise it produces. When you pass by, nothing like, unless a person is standing to look at you, then nobody will see your movements because there is no noise. It doesn't produce any noise. And again, there is no carbon dioxide produced from it. And as we know, these are our vehicles that use fuels. It causes some smokes, and these smokes pollute the environment.
Although the e-bike offers numerous advantages, its higher cost is a significant barrier for many individuals.
I would like to own one, but looking at my state right now, the price is very costly. It's costly for me. I can't afford to purchase one for myself. And looking at my destination from my place to the school is a bit far. So I wish if the price can be brought down, it will help most of us.
The cost is very high. The cost of the motor is very, very high. Some sell it 7,000, some 8,000, some 5,000, some 4,000. The 4,000, most people complain the battery is very poor. So when you buy it, you have to change the battery. And Another thing I've observed is the part of the motor. When you don't use it wisely and it's spoiled, it's very expensive to buy it. The parts are very, very expensive. Some of the parts cost 300 without the workmanship. Some cost 200. Some even cost 500. But for me, I have not experienced any fault with it.
E-bikes provide freedom and mobility for people of all ages and abilities. Residents here want the government to offer incentives and investment in e-bike infrastructure to encourage their adoption. A report by Mohammed Nuruddin.
Well, let's expand this conversation further. Joining me via Zoom this morning is Adam Yakubu. He's with the Renewable Energy, and he's a researcher and policy analyst at Institute for Energy Security. Many thanks for your time, Mr. Yakubu. I don't know if you follow the story, but these women, these residents, should I say citizens, are particularly excited about the shifts from the previous motorbikes with carbon emissions to electric ones. But what I want to find out is how significant is this shift to electric bikes in reducing carbon emissions, especially in a community like Bawku with a history of motorbike reliance?
Yes, let me say good morning to you and good morning to your cherished viewers and listeners across the country. Bawku is a very interesting place for me because I've lived there somewhere in 2017, and the motorbike use is very predominant in the area. And so to place a ban on motorbikes only for them to have an alternative, because one thing that have not been highlighted is these bikes can also be paddled just like you do with a bicycle. So if you look at how these things are, the e-bikes are designed, it is a hybrid kind of bikes. And I think that for a place like Bawku, it is very, very important to have something like that. Let me say that the penetration of e-bikes in Bawku contributes to a bigger focus, even though if you look at the reason why e-bikes are taken over in Bawku, it is not a policy. It is as a result of a decision that people have resorted to look for an alternative. So the ban on the use of motorbikes as a result of the conflict that is going on there have pushed people to look for an alternative. So this cannot be described as a motorbike proper, as the law has put a ban on, but can also allow you to still move at a more convenient way than a bicycle would have done. Okay, so let's get that thing in proper place. It's not as a result of a policy, but as a result of a particular decision to control security that has pushed people into this.
Right. Let's look at the environment then. I mean, what are the potential long-term environmental, and we can add economic benefits as well, and that's the people of Bawku could experience if this transition to e-bikes is fully embraced?
Yeah, so if you look at e-bikes and e-mobility as we would normally call them, they don't produce noise oftentimes, and they don't produce greenhouse gases, as they've rightly stated. So in the long run, one, you have the noise pollution thing controlled. Two, you have health benefits that come as a result of these vehicles that we use that produce these greenhouse gases have a long-term health implication. Also, if you look at the operation cost of running an e-vehicle or an e-mobility appliance, it is relatively cheaper compared to what we have with the traditional vehicles. Currently, looking at the prices of fuel, if you compare it with running an e-vehicle or an e-mobility device, you would be better off going for an e-mobility device. But however, there are some challenges that makes it very difficult for people to actually adopt this easily. One, there are infrastructure barriers to it. So for example, with these bikes, you can easily charge it at home. That makes it a bit convenient. If it is a vehicle, we would need bigger infrastructure, just like you have for fuel stations, to always allow people to be able to charge on the go.
Yeah, like a charging terminal of a sort. Yeah.
Exactly. So people who will be doing a longer distance, if you in the interview, you would see that someone said he travels a longer distance. Most of those who use it for short distance might not experience this. We call it the road trip problem, where you when you want to go on a longer distance, it's difficult because the power might run out at some point, and
Right.
so you would need the infrastructure to be able to do this in a more advanced way or in a more acceptable way
Sustainable.
without
Right.
difficulties. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, in as much as these e-bikes reducing the pollution in the air and carbon emissions, looks like the cost remains one of the big barriers, especially for the people in Bawku. What policies would you recommend, or subsidies would you recommend that we make to make it more accessible and sustainable?
This conversation is even long overdue because at COP28, if I remember, the government of Ghana launched an e-mobility or they called it the e-transport policy. And so we would have expected that at the rollout of this policy, some incentives, one, be given to those who bring in these equipments. And when we say bringing it in, we know that most of them are not made in Ghana, so they are imported. And if the import duties and the cost of bringing it in is high, obviously the final product is going to be extremely expensive, which will be a discouraging factor to a lot of Ghanaians. Another thing I would want to raise is we should be looking at how to train people who would be able to handle these type of equipment. Traditionally, we just have ordinary fitters who do their own thing. And so this new type of technology that we are introducing into our market, how would we train people that already have the existing knowledge to be able to work on them? Otherwise, you have a lot of them in the long run, when they get some faults, you can't
Yeah.
replace it. And so it could also be a discouraging factor for me. Like I did mention, the infrastructure, if government is looking to roll out mobility on a larger scale, then we will have to do significant investments when it comes to infrastructure. If it is going to be PPP arrangement, government should be ready to support people that are willing to build the infrastructure so that people can use it. So, because if you look at the traditional fuel stations we run, the fuel stations don't belong to the state. The state only helps in the regulation and management of these institutions. And so we should be willing to do that if we really want to expand e-mobility.
And talking
Tax
about,
incentive,
go on, go on.
tax incentives for also people that are willing to build them in Ghana. I think just ended. I was watching the institutions for technical institutions that were having a competition, and I saw that some senior high school students were
The
able to
Renewable
build.
Energy Challenge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They built something, and that means that there's a potential that Ghanaians are able to build some of these things in Ghana. Then we would need some production tax credits to some companies that are willing to do. We have a number of companies that are into assembling. You have Wahoo, you have e-taxi that are already in Ghana. But can we be thinking of how do we build some of these things in Ghana? If we can do that, because we know that there's a program called One District, One Factory. This is a potential that could tap on. And so for me, I would have expected that in the long run, government should be looking at how to use some of its policies and programs to attract investment in these areas. Yeah.
Okay, so you've talked about beefing up human resources so that they have the technical know-how to handle repairs, wear and tear and all that. You talked about tax exemptions and proper infrastructure, whether it is public-private partnership or however we look at it. So now I'm wondering, beyond Bawku, do you see this transportation shift as a model for other regions in Ghana to adopt? And what should the government really prioritize in this case?
Yeah, beyond Bawku, like I did state from the beginning, Bawku is adopting this as a result of another decision, not necessarily because government has targeted them to do this, but I am aware that government has its policy, the e-mobility policy, that's one. The energy transition framework that government launched is also another. It has a transport component to describing how government is going to move away from fossil fuels to renewable energy. And this particular mode of transport fits into that. And so if we want to do it on a larger scale, like I did state, the infrastructure is very important. Even in advanced economies, one of the biggest things that is not making people adopt e-vehicles is because of infrastructure.
Right.
Because I have an e-vehicle and I cannot drive it from Accra to Kumasi. I cannot drive it from Accra to Tamale. So technically, it wouldn't make sense to have a vehicle that would just be used for town drives and all that, unless, of course, you are just looking for the luxury of it. Other than that, I can say that I've not seen an e-vehicle in Tamale. It means that there's no, because the infrastructure is not there. And so it is not even a motivation for someone to buy a car like that and move it to Tamale, because when you do that, you are likely to suffer some of these things that we are. So if we are looking to scale it up at a national level, then these bigger blocks, like I did state in the previous discussion, that the infrastructure, the people that will work on them, the taxes that add up to the building up of the final product is something that we need to carefully look at, because in advanced economies, you see them doing these things. Like, for example, if you pick the United States Inflation Reductions Act, there are subsequent different components of taxes, waivers that are offered to businesses, to individuals, to be able to adopt this. We don't have that. We just design a broader policy, but to focus on transport, I think that we can do better. And I've seen that there's been some conversation of introducing e-buses. Yes, it's a bigger problem. So the infrastructure would have to be built.
That's contained in the manifesto of, I think, the NPP. But thank you so much, Adam Yakubu. He's a renewable energy researcher and policy analyst at Institute for Energy Security, for putting this in perspective for us. Many thanks for your time. And that's the end of this conversation on Climate Focus today, the latest episode brought to you by Mahmoud Mohamed Nuruddin. And there's still a lot more coming your way. It's not 10 a.m. yet. We'll be right back.